now we are off to our second speaker. So let me properly introduce her. We are going to chat with Sarah Ed Mash, Head of EMEA Marketing at Currencycloud. Now, Sarah specializes in market strategy for key programs, product marketing, product market strategy, end user engagement, digital engagement, and program growth. A lot on her plate. As a growth driver and storyteller, she is currently head of EMEA Marketing at Currencycloud, and previously co-ran her own successful digital marketing agency for 13 years. Post-sale, Sarah joined Google as strategic lead for EMEA B2B team and was responsible for the development and launch of over 50 EMEA and 5 global marketing campaigns. 50 EMEA. So now handing over to Steve and Sarah.
Amazing. Thanks, Peter. And hi, Sarah. It's fantastic to have you here. And it's great just to reflect on some of your thoughts during that breakout room. First of all, I just would you mind just kicking off by introducing Currencycloud for people on the call who don't know or perhaps aren't as familiar with Currencycloud? Could you give a little intro? And just everyone, Sarah has a snoring dog in the background. I'm just putting it out there.
Thank you. She's snoring really loudly. Yes, Currencycloud is me working in the fintech space. We help businesses move money across borders. So we're serving banks, financial fintech, and FX brokers. We have been going since 2012. Growing. We're in a massive growth spurt. In the last 6 months, we've recruited 150 people. So we went from 300 to 450, and we've got another, 100 to go for the rest of the year. Yeah, it's a really, really amazing company, which really, really lives its values, which are be human, better together.
Amazing. Well, what an exciting place to be. And I think, what's really interesting from your background is going from agency to client side. I wonder if perhaps you might be able to just start off by talking about that journey and some of the challenges and opportunities from that move from running your own agency to then moving client side.
From a challenges perspective, I've not found it that difficult. I'm not sure how hard it is to go from client side to agency side, where it's got the kind of master servant mentality. But from my perspective, having that you use, which is fun, and you get a lot of variety. So there's lots of plus sides. Your clients become your stakeholders internally. So there's not a huge difference. You're always working together as a team, and I've always, when I was client side, agency side, very much kind of from the partnership philosophy anyway, so that hasn't changed. But what's really good about being client side is that you can see the impact you're making. Clients can be very protective about sharing data and results with their, so you're asked to evaluate something and demonstrate what the ROI of something will be. But equally, a client's really, really shy about giving you the actual data to help you do that. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And then the other thing is it's easier to be bolder and more audacious on the client side because you own that narrative with yourself and your stakeholders and your senior management. So you can really sell an idea or concept that you have. When you're agency side, you have an idea that you think is great, is great, and you're trying to sell it to your client, and they don't have quite the same appetite to be bold or take a risk. And then how they then sell it on to their leadership team and deal with the obstacles and that arise from that. It's out of your control, so you can have a lovely idea that just never sees the light of day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think in terms of the content piece, for us, it's really about how we can have our clients back and really sort of understand their challenges and what their KPIs or OKRs are, so we can help them get there and be that support and think about how we can do things like maximize the content that we're creating, making sure that the business is getting the best ROI? Can we help them with social amplification, for example, to make sure that the written work that we're creating is really getting seen, for example, or understanding the metrics and the performance of the video content that we're creating, so we can optimize it. I wonder around, working with Currencycloud in the fintech, the finance space. It's quite heavy, and in terms of building out specifically written content, how do you sort of take the steps to ensure that the written work that you're commissioning or creating is hitting the mark, and the team that you're working with really understands finance and the fairly fintech, the tech heavy content that you're creating?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. It's really, really important to understand finance and fintech as much and what you're trying to convey as it is to explain it really simply to the end user. Einstein said it all when he said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So it's so important for copywriters to really get it. So the short answer is we usually get them to do a test. We're all about chemistry and connection. So you meet someone, that they've got the experience and the wherewithal to do work with them, and then do a test to see what their kind of writing style is, if they can follow our own brand guidelines, and if they can convey a complex idea quite simply. And follow a brief. Oh God, it's so important to be able to actually follow the brief.
Yeah, good brief. And I think that's one of the things that we really hunkered down on and really focus on, is that briefing process, and really interrogating that brief before we go anywhere near a customer, and really understanding why a story is so important to the organization. Why is that particular customer important to the organization? What's it sort of laddering up to in terms of more strategic priorities, and these stories that are centered on fintech, how do you sort of make them approachable to wider audiences? And it's the whole tech speak thing, right? How do you look at getting the right balance of the warmth of the story, but also having making sure that it's landing the mark for the audience?
Yeah, so that's an interesting, really important to engage with the end user, and to do that, it's not through using text speak. I read a Zendesk thought leadership piece of research the other day, and it said that customers and end users want to be working with brands that they can associate with and really live and breathe their values. So you can't convey your brand values if you're just talking in text speak, and talking about the scalability of your tech stack. You really need to engage with people first. So we try and get people to feel before they think. So finding a story that actually engages with them, and they associate with the challenges that they assistant speaking, challenges that person faces in their role or in their business. And Lydia said earlier, what was his name? I wrote it down. Scott Hook quote about getting other people to tell your story for you. So like at eBay and Google, it was really successful. When you get other people to talk, and they use their own language, and you kind of leapfrog the text speak and go straight into talking to people as people, like people. So that's super important, and I think that's the way to get the balance right, is by letting other people explain it for you.
Yeah, letting other people do the talking, and and really when it comes then to video, and it's, in your mind, really, what is it that makes a great story that's suitable for video, a great customer story that's suitable for video?
I think you have to start with the why you're making the video. Who is it for? Why would they want to watch it? What's the key benefit you're trying to convey? And how are you evaluating that piece of video? But if you understand who it's for, and then you can work out what the most engaging story is, kind of alluded to it, the people piece is so important. So whatever that problem is, at Google, we to start with, we focus on quite quirky stories. So there was a Swiss cuckoo, you probably remember, cuckoo clock carver, and it was a great story, but we discovered that people loved the story, but it just didn't resonate. Businesses thought that Google was not for them because it wasn't relevant. So going quirky doesn't work. So you need to find that is a good speaker whose story is engaging, who's really actually quite a charismatic, compelling storyteller themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then make sure that that fits in with your ideal customer profile, you know, whether it's, if it's a marketing, a CMO, and what their objectives are, so it needs to be parallel with that. Or if it's a small business owner and they're facing the challenges of the pandemic and what's happened to them in their family business, and if that's your ideal customer profile. So it's about fitting in the person that's speaking with your ideal customer profile and your target. Always going people and problem first. That's so important because that engages everybody. And then explaining the impact because I think it's that no one wants to hear a bad story, right? And you're not going to tell one anyway. But you know, it's like taking somebody on the journey of the person that's telling their story, and then ending with proper kind of actionable items. You can do this. You too can achieve this, and you could potentially achieve.
And I would also add to that is really finding, you know, from our experiences when we're making these B2B films about how technology has enabled or supported an organization, it's, you know, people on laptops, working on laptops are boring. Like you need to find the visual element to that story and really make sure up front you craft it so when you go to the shoot, you show people in situ, you show their businesses, whether it's the cuckoo clock or a factory or Ocado, for example, we made a film with. You need to be able to make that story visual to show the benefit of that technology on the business. And if you can't do that, you need a plan B, or, you know, in our mind, we would talk to our client and try and rethink the story and think if there was a different way of telling it that wasn't necessarily in video, because for us, it's all about the visual story, getting that emotion across and that connection, you know, with the audience.
Absolutely. I think we spend about 70% of our filming time on the B-roll rather than the interviews. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of that connection, I just want to ask one last question around the importance. You mentioned that, you know, Currencycloud is going through this amazing rapid growth period. How important is it for Currencycloud to speak globally but communicate locally?
We need to speak globally because borders are increasingly blurred, and we are a global cross-border. So we should be reaching out to as many demographics. But that being said, once we've localized our content, we need to communicate locally in order to reach the people in each specific market. So they feel that we understand them, their language, their culture, and everything. It's just really important to treat our customers, our end users, as individuals and individual users, not just as one homogenous mass. It's I think, I can't remember who mentioned it, it was Peter, I think, earlier, about that authenticity, the authenticity of voice. People can see right through it when you're just trying to say the same, a cookie cutter approach, same thing to everybody. So it's so important to kind of speak globally, but communicate locally. Amazing.
Yeah, we could talk for hours, but we've only got a limited amount of time. So thank you so much. It was it's so fascinating, and it's so, you know, it's so great to watch Currencycloud's amazing journey.